Hello and welcome to the last video in my kind of mini-series of Switch Ham Says videos. In the first video, I talked about how basically my main apprehension about the Switch, and it was basically that I felt maybe it wasn't quite ready to come out with its whole not having an internet browser, not having streaming services, and maybe Nintendo's attention needs to be directed in certain other areas. So in the second video, I talked about, what intrigued me most about the Switch, and it was how it was so interchangeable and upgradable. And now I want to talk about why I think the Switch is quite important to video games and where we are, and really where we want to go. Because people say all the time, obviously, you vote with your wallet, and that is true. Because obviously video games are a business and developers can only really make what people are willing to buy, unless it's a hobby, and in that case you end up with something like AM2R, which is a free game that a fan made in his own time, and it took him like 10 years. And that's fine, but you can't really sustain that on a long-term basis. If there was only your favorite game franchises coming out every 10 years, it wouldn't really work. So obviously video games are a business, and especially in the case of consoles, the kind of consoles we buy are the kind of consoles we get more of. So for example, we bought a lot of very traditional bog standard consoles, and hence we have gotten a lot of very traditional bog standard consoles. The Switch, you don't need me to tell you, is kind of different. Not only is it portable and hybrid, but it's also, I've said in previous videos, how it's kind of a hybrid in between the Wii and a traditional controller, and even there's hints of the Wii U and the DS kind of sprinkled in there, which is interesting to me. And that's the thing. Between that and stuff like HD Rumble and little things like the IR camera, I don't know what the IR camera could possibly be used for in a game. The best idea I've come up with is like you could do an accordion type thing, because it can sense how far your hand away is, and it could sense maybe hand gestures, so it could sense you like pressing buttons. That's about the best I've come up with. But you never know. Maybe a developer could come up with something that is really interesting and kind of, neat to do with that. And the point is that they have the option to do that, and the Switch gives them that, which the PS4 and the Xbox One, they don't really. The best thing the Xbox One has is that kind of haptic feedback in the triggers, so that's cool. Yeah, I can see that, that's pretty cool. And the biggest thing the PS4 had was the light bar. The light bar really doesn't change the game almost at all. It is kind of cool to see it flash red and whatever, but beyond that gee-whiz factor, it really hasn't changed the dynamic of how video games are played, and most people I've heard just switch it off anyway in the settings. So that's the thing that I think is worth supporting about the Switch, is that Nintendo are trying to do something different. And people always say, oh, but doesn't that innovation kind of hurt them? Not really. The 3DS, I don't know if it necessarily was sold exclusively on its 3D gimmick, but it sold well. The DS sold well with its touchscreen. In fairness, phones weren't really that proliferated at that point. Touchscreen games were a fairly new thing. And it's the same with the Wii. It was that gee-whiz factor of being able to, swing your hand and have the character do that on screen. Now, given motion control technology has come in a long way, but it really does help them when Nintendo manages to nail it. And people always say, why do you need to do that? Can't you innovate with what we already have? And I mean, if you were to take that approach, then why do we have electronic music? Why do we have color film? Why do we have rumble in controllers? If you're never, trying to push and innovate and trying to change what the status quo is, like we wouldn't have D-pads, we wouldn't have analog sticks. If we were never trying to innovate, we'd still be stuck with the Magnavox Odyssey with its little knobs. Obviously that wasn't sufficient for games. That argument, it just loses so much water. I'm not saying that you're wrong. There is definitely a lot we can do with just a traditional controller, like a DualShock 4, or this isn't a DualShock 4, but it's a DualShock 3, like, dual analog, buttons, whatever. But you think about it, even dual analog sticks. Like, that was something that Sony started with the DualShock controller. It was a reiteration of the PS1 controller after they saw how much of a hit the N64's analog stick was. And also added rumble, because the N64 wasn't afraid to push the boundaries and to add in an analog stick. You know, even trying to push technology forward in terms of trying to make different processors and whatever, that is something that is, you know, it has uniquely changed the way we've made games. There are plenty of kind of like 8-bit games that could be made on the NES hardware, and we could have stuck with that until the end of time, and we could probably make some really diverse games, and if we just, you know, were really creative about it, we could eke out a whole load of little possibilities. But then we would have never had things like first-person shooters, third-person shooters, 3D platformers, perhaps even, there's a lot of types of real-time strategy games and whatever that wouldn't have been possible with that hardware. You know, the list goes on. Things like Wii Sports. And also, people are very interested in new technology at the moment. Obviously, the stuff like VR and whatever. Now, personally, in my mind, even though VR is really cool, it's kind of a pipe dream, and it's kind of, you know, eventually it'll kind of make its way into our everyday lives, and perhaps we'll be able to afford VR headsets. But the thing is that when you look at, you know, Nintendo's Switch, you know, it's 300 quid, it's a reasonable price, you can buy it now, and it is trying to change not just the way like we control video games, but also the way we experience them. And in fact, it's more the extrinsic as opposed to the intrinsic that's changing with the Switch. And the fact that you can now play something at home and on the go really changes the kind of content you have to offer in a game, because you have to be wary that not only do you want to make a game that, you know, is suitable for long play sessions, but a game that has like little bite-sized things so that people can feel like they're making progress when they're just playing it for like a 10-minute bus journey. And that's what's very interesting about the Switch, and it's why I think we should support consoles like the Switch, because it's really trying to change the way we look and experience video games. And that's why I think Nintendo is worth supporting. Even if they were just to sell like 30 million units, they don't even have to do as well as their competition, you know, even 20 million, just enough for them to kind of get by, because I feel like they are really trying to push new things within like the console industry, and that eventually ripples out and it makes its way into other controllers. Like I said, Sony adopted the analog stick, they adopted the rumble, you know, and Microsoft invented they didn't invent online, but they took online from Sega and they really made it work. And then that was, you know, proliferated even more. You know, we need someone who's willing to innovate, and right now Sony and Microsoft are very conservative in the way they're innovating, as opposed to Nintendo, who are very clearly trying to, you know, stick to this blue ocean strategy that they've been talking about since the Wii era. It's to really try and push through and try and come up with something that no other current video game system is doing. And that's why I think it's worth supporting them. It's just, I know I keep saying this, and I'm, you know, really starting to, you know, repeat myself and hammer it home, but it is true. It is really just about trying new things, and they are one company that is trying new things, that isn't like an indie developer who doesn't maybe have the budget. They have the scope to try new things. And Nintendo have not traditionally tried new things for a lot of time. For example, if you look in Smash Bros. Brawl, the newest character they had was Olimar. Like, he was the newest kind of franchise character that had been created. Yet, if you look at now in Smash 4 Wii U and for 3DS, they have stuff like the Villager, the Wii Fit Trainer. The Villager obviously came a bit before Smash Brawl, but the Wii Fit Trainer, say what you will about Wii Fit, the Mii's, and now we've got things like Inklings now in Splatoon. And you're noticing now that they're trying to, you know, really change it up. And they've kind of evolved from that company that was kind of just making, you know, very standard traditional video games to some company that is really trying to like do something different every time they start a new development process. Even something as simple as Mario Party Star Rush, which like most people don't even care about, is trying to create a new blueprint for what Mario Party games could be like. Obviously people have been complaining about the car for ages and how everyone's locked into that one thing, but yet they don't want everyone to move one after the other because it means lots of players are left sitting around. So what they've done is they've created some sort of Toad battle mode, and the idea is that you can, I'm sorry, I haven't played Mario Party Star Rush, but you can control like your character and everyone moves at the same time, but also you have agency over where you go and you're moving independently of everyone else. And that really changes the dynamic. And yet this is a game that they clearly didn't put much effort into. Like, it was like a 30 quid game that came out on the 3DS, like at the end of last year, maybe the beginning of this year, I can't even remember. And I mean, it was reusing its box art from a soup tin label. This was a complete stopgap game, and yet they still tried something new. Now, say what you will about reusing, you know, art from a soup can or whatever, like obviously that's not great, but the point is that they made this game because they just needed something to fill out their, you know, kind of library, and yet, you know, the developers still tried something new, and that'll probably be a mode that makes its way into future Mario Party games because it was quite well received. So yeah, if I've rambled a lot, it's because, you know, this is kind of something I feel very passionately about, so I may be letting my emotions getting the better of me. I'm not necessarily just saying that we should just support Nintendo because they're the only ones doing this. Obviously the other companies are trying. I think they're just a bit conservative at the moment. And I would like to see them go a little more crazy, you know, just step outside their comfort zone, or at least even if there was a new console manufacturer. This is why I got the Ouya, because I was like, oh my goodness, there's a new console manufacturer for the first time in like 15 years when the Ouya came out. Well, it wasn't 15, it was 12 when the Ouya came out. But the point was, like, it had been a long time, and I just really wanted to see someone new who were trying to do something new, and obviously the Ouya didn't necessarily succeed, but it's kind of deterred a lot of people from trying. So, I don't know, what do you think about this? Please comment down below, please like the video if you found this interesting, and please also subscribe if you have not already.